Think about that. If you think negative thoughts, all of your energy is going to go negative. If you think positive thoughts, your energy is going to be lifted up. It's going to be, positive, and we can't be just positive and on top of the world all the time. But to be negative is like anyway, it goes out into the universe and affects everybody that it gets close to. So, let me put my glasses on here so I can see what I'm got written down here. Uh, this time last week we were in Florida and had a wonderful time with our friends. And this is really where I got the idea to do this. I've done it before, the talk about energy flows, where attention goes. And, we were driving around in Florida and Jupiter, and that's where we went, Jupiter. And my friend is going to buy a new car. And so her husband had just suggested maybe a Lexus. And all of a sudden, everywhere we looked, there was a Lexus. Had Lexus on the parking lot, a Lexus beside us, in front of us, around us, which they were there all along, but we really didn't pay that much attention to them until we heard the word Lexus. And that's kind of how life is. When we hear something positive, or when we hear something negative, we can just catch on to that in a heartbeat. But you can flip that and bring in the positive energy. Jeff does a really good job on his meditations to bring in the emphasis of positive energy. And, it's really up to us. God gives us all energy, and what we want to do with it is up to us. This is a small town of 500 people. And I've been here 40 years. We have a city election every other year. And so I've been here for at least 20 elections. And this is the most negative election I have ever seen or participated. You'd think it was a presidential election. And it's sort of, that negativity sort of goes out into the community. And, I went to a meeting Sunday afternoon, and they were invited all of the candidates to have a forum, not a debate, but just to answer questions. And it really showed a lot. Anyway, 3 showed up, 3 didn't. Anyway, I'm just saying that how negative energy can affect families, it can affect communities, it can affect our towns, our cities, our world, and so it's up to each of us to check our own negativity out and where it's coming from. And I don't know why this just popped into my mind, but love is really the answer to all of our problems today. Love, and love without honesty is people pleasing. Think of that. Love without honesty is people pleasing. Honesty without love is brutality. Think about it. Honesty without love is brutality. You can be honest, and I used to be pretty much like that, because I thought everybody wanted to know what their problem was, and it was my place. I guess I spent too much time in group rooms. And it can be appropriate when people are paying you to help them see all parts of themselves, and but when we think negative about anything, that's what we're going to get back, folks. You think negative, it's going to come right back, circle right back around you. So, so the core principle is what you look for is what you find. You look for the negative, guess what? You're going to find it. You can find it in church. You can find it in in communities, in the family. You can find it anywhere. But those of us that are in recovery, we don't get the privilege of staying in negativity very long. Because if we do, if we stay, Jeff shaking his head, that's something that has passed us by. If we're going to be in recovery, yes, we can have a negative thought trickle through our mind, but if we allow it to stay there, as addicts, whatever gets in our brain, it will just linger and it grows and it grows. And, we can't afford that. We can't afford it because if we get all eat up with negativity, the first thing that we're thinking about is what will make us feel better. We're not a bunch of idiots. If we didn't get something out of the substance that we used, we'd do it a couple of times and think, oh, well, I don't want to do that anymore. It costs too much. It takes up too much time. But as addicts, when we get into that negativity and thinking people are against us and all of that, what our brain will tell us, well, you deserve to go have a drink. You deserve to go have a milkshake or whatever your drug of choice is, And when that happens, that's what leads to relapse. This is why, my audience today is pretty much all recovery, and that's why we have to live a different life. Shake your head if y'all think you do. It doesn't mean we live in perfection. Don't anybody think that. We strive for perfection and we settle for a little progress, progress along the way. Because if we don't, what it will send us down on is that road to relapse. And so, like I said, there's no one's perfect. We don't live a perfect life. And we have to strive to stay out of negativity at all costs. Do y'all agree with that or not? Because I don't know of very many people that I've treated. Yes, if people believe in alcohol and drinking, they will, maybe go to a wedding and celebrate the couple with a glass of champagne. Alcoholics will maybe drink a glass of champagne at the wedding, or an eating disorder person, compulsive overeater, might eat one of those little bitty pieces of cake. And what that does is it just sets us up to want more. And so we'll stop at the bakery and get a whole cake, go home and eat, basically the whole cake, or the alcoholic will, continue and go get their drug of choice. So, we don't live in perfection as addicts, but we have to live a different life. We have to live a different way. And that's where, the negativity that, we can't afford it. We cannot afford to live in the state of negativity. And so, either negative energy or positive energy, what that energy flows wherever our attention goes. You think about it. If you have a problem, all your attention is going on that problem. And if you're mad at someone, angry at someone, you're not thinking positive thoughts about that someone. You're thinking about how you can get even with them. And like I said, for us addicts, that is a dangerous position to be in. We don't get to get even, folks. We don't. What we get to do is smile, keep our mouths shut, and that's hasn't always been the best thing that I've done. I do today, finally, at age 83, I've learned to have a little discernment about when to speak and when to be silent. So, that energy, regardless whether it's negative or positive, it's going to go in the direction, it's going to get the attention. I'll give you an example. I had the idea because I was working at I was working at a drug alcohol treatment center. I wanted to open an all addiction treatment center with a primary focus on eating disorders, and it was just in the beginning stages. It was between my two ears. It was a thought. It had not materialized. And I was really into positive thinking then. And so what I did is I did an image board. I took a piece of cardboard and I made an image board of what I would like the facility to look like. I had no idea where we would put the treatment center. I was clueless of where we would put it. But energy is powerful. So what I drew on there was something that looked kind of like a southern, not a southern plantation, but something with a lot of white, maybe some yellow, maybe some shutters. And then my office would have French doors on it, and I could look out the door and see pink flowers and greenery. And I drew all of that on an image board out of my imagination. Are y'all with me? So we couldn't find a place. We could not find one place in Abilene, Texas that was conducive for a small eating disorder unit. So I had already resigned from the Serenity House that last day of December 1987, and I was out here at Buffalo Gap, right at my neighbors right behind me here at a New Year's Eve party. Now there's a piece of property here. It's called Mulberry Street Market. That was a beautiful piece of property. And when my husband and I would get to fussing and fighting at night, I would come out, I weighed almost 287 pounds, and I had this old blue house coat, and I'd have that house coat on. It'd be 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd come out here and walk under the trees out here at Buffalo Gap. So we were sitting playing cards over at the New Year's Eve party, and I heard someone say that the owner wanted to sell Mulberry Street Market because it was literally going to the dogs. It used to be a very prosperous restaurant because there was no alcohol in Abilene, but they had gotten a liquor license out here. So people would line up for miles to come to that fine restaurant. Then when Abilene got alcohol, they quit coming out here. So consequently, the beautiful restaurant went out of business. So my ears perked up, and I couldn't hardly concentrate on my card game for thinking about what they were saying about Mulberry Street Market. So I asked, Florence Henderson was the woman that owned it, and I asked, well, where is she? Well, she'd moved to Dallas. Does anybody have her phone number? Yeah, so I got her phone number before I left. And when you put something out in the universe and you start praying for it, and you don't have any idea what it'll look like, but you're just putting the thought out there, put it out there, and put out really what you might want it to look like, but it's all coming out of our imagination. And that's what all this treatment center was coming out of my imagination. So I got the woman's number. I called her, and she was eager to talk to me because it was literally dogs were living over there, hobos coming off of the train were living inside of the beautiful restaurant. They'd break in and they'd set up camp over there. So I asked her if she was willing to sell it, and she said absolutely. So I had no money. I had zero money, and I did not want to involve my husband because he owned his own business, and I thought, if I can't do this, of course, in the state of Texas, he was going to own half of it anyway, and it wasn't that I didn't want him to own part of it, but I didn't want him to feel obligated to have to help me. So we met, and I saw that she desperately wanted to sell it. And so what I offered her, and I'm not that much of a businesswoman, I believe this came out of God speaking through me, to me, I don't know. And I said, well, why don't we do this? Why don't I do a 3-year lease and pay you monthly, a monthly lease with an option to buy at the end of 3 years, and let what I've paid those 3 years be the down payment. I'll tell you, she would have taken anything I offered because she had no use for it. It was going into ruin, and the time was right. It was just right. That's the reason that I couldn't find anything in Abilene. It's because I need to be out here at the beautiful piece of property where we are. And so that's the beginning of Shades of Hope. I met with her. She got the paperwork done the next day. I signed the papers, and I kept the payment low because we had not even started the business. And so we made it work. Florence and I did. We made it work. And I'm very grateful for her for helping. And she couldn't imagine, because she was a drinker, she could not imagine that being an addiction center, because there had been a lot of drinking going on in that fine restaurant through the years. So, energy flows where attention goes. Whatever you put your attention to, that's where your energy's going. And whatever you look for, you'll find. If you wake up and focus what's wrong, what's missing, who hurt you, what didn't go your way, you will find more of that all day long. We can look for negativity. If you want to find negativity, look for it. Go inside, you carry it around if you're a negative type of person. And, and how people are out to get you, and how people are talking about you or whatever. All of that takes up a lot of time in our brain. It takes up a lot of time. And when we talk negative, that energy flows out. People can catch it. People can feel it. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Negativity catches negativity. When you're positive, it's going to catch the positive. There's no other way. So, if you're looking every day, if you're looking for someone to do you wrong, guess what? You're going to find somebody. You go to the grocery store. It's a busy grocery store, and you see a line that's not as long as someone, so you head toward that line, and someone else is coming in the other direction. Guess what? They get your spot, And now, if you're not, happy, joyous, and free, you're going to just be absolutely mad at that person for cutting in line. Now, if you can have the energy that puts your attention on the positive, you can stand there and become friends with that person while you're waiting in line. And otherwise, you might even push your basket into her. Oh, well, that was an accident. But anyway, so whatever we put out there, we draw to us. If you're going to put out the negativity, it's going to come back to you full blast. So be prepared. The flip of that, if you put out positivity, and even if you're on the opposite side of something, let's say this election, even if you're on the opposite side, always say good about your opponent. If you want to win an election, you say good things about your opponent, but then you say how you're qualified. You put down your opponent. I wouldn't vote for one person that spends their election time putting down their opponent, instead of telling about what they can do and what they can bring to the table, because they're going to show you in the election what you're going to have when they get elected. So that negative energy spreads out in a community or in a town or in a country a lot more than the positive does. Half the time, people don't even want to hear anything positive. You know, gossip is when you hear gossip, you don't want to hear good things happening to people. You want to hear all those bad things. Oh, bless their hearts, you know. But if they won the lottery, you know, we don't want to hear about that unless they'll give us part of it. You know, it's hard for us to be happy with other people's happiness. And so that energy flows in that negative direction. And it's, and that's where our attention goes. So, this isn't just positive thinking. This is how God designed our minds to be. If we intentionally look for the good and the right in people, we're going to see it. If we look for the bad in people, that's going to show up too. Because guess what? We're all made up of both. There's a little bit of good in the worst of us and a little bit of bad in the best of us. We're human, we're fallible human beings. And guess what? We're going to make mistakes, but we're not mistakes. God made us, each one individually. He knows the hairs on our heads. He knows us inside out. And so, if you intentionally start out your day thinking how bad, awful, and wrong it's going to be, it sure will be. If you start out, one of the things that I used to sponsor a lot of people. I sponsor a couple of people now. And what I was told in sponsorship, being sponsored, and what I have shared with clients and people I sponsored is of a morning, write at least 3 to 5 gratitudes every morning. Write out 3 to 5 gratitudes, 5, 10. You know, once you get started, get that positive going in your mind, you can think of everything in the world to be grateful for, you know. But when you get that negativity going, I mean, everything is gloom and, you know. So, what gratitude, you know, going through life with an attitude of gratitude will buy you a whole lot more friends than the other way. You know, you can't be hateful and grateful at the same time. Have you ever known anyone that's just hateful all of the time? I mean, just goes around with a scowl on their face. It's very hard for them to find anything to be grateful for. And what I say is usually what those people are doing is that they're carrying around a burden. And every human being has a burden. Some of us carry it better than others. But when you find a person that is bitter and mean-spirited, you can mark it down. I think it comes from their childhood. Somewhere along the way, they felt that, excuse my language, but they felt that feeling of no damn goodness, just felt bad about themselves. And then once that is planted in that heart, then it grows and it grows and it grows to the point that they can't see anything positive. So what matters is this isn't just positive thinking, you know. This is about how God designed us. God did not design us to be mean-spirited. You know, I think we brought that on ourselves. We're some of all of that. But what God teaches us is to live on that positive side of the street. And what happens is our brain creates pathways. And when you think negativity, it makes pathways in our brains. Now that can be changed, but it takes a lot of work. And it takes a lot of, I've never seen a positive addict yet. I've never worked with an alcoholic, a drug addict, an eating disorder person coming to us just feeling so good about themselves in the world and just happy go lucky. Now, if they do that, once you get past that facade, that's a front that they've put up. Once you get past that, then you see the hurt and the bitterness that they're carrying around. You know, I've never worked with an addict that was just happy as a lark. They're not until they find recovery. And to me, recovery finding means finding the God of their understanding. So the brain creates the pathways, and the more you focus on something, the deeper you're digging those pathways. They get deeper and deeper and deeper. The more negativity you think of, the more negative you become, the more negative you act, and it gets where people don't want to be around you, And so if you spent years focused on negativity, and fear, fear is false evidence appearing real. False is, oh my God, what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month? Very few, just think about this, very few people have legitimate fear in the moment, in this moment, unless there's a disaster happening, unless there's an accident, unless like Henny Penny says, the sky is falling, unless there's something happening in the moment. Most of us don't walk around with fear in the moment. But if you live your life out of fear, fear is always about the future. It is about the future. Unless you see a grizzly bear coming towards you, then feel fear in the present moment. Otherwise, it's what can happen, what could happen. If this doesn't happen, this could happen. Fear is always in the future. Oh my God, what's going to happen? If you bring it back to the moment and see what's so bad, awful, and wrong right this moment. And that's all we have is this moment. So resentment, resentment, you break it down, all resentment is, the word satiric, S-E-N-T, comes from a Greek word that means to resent, S-E-N-T. Satiri, and what satiri means is to resent. And so resentment is nothing but replaying those negative thoughts over and over and over and over and over again. Somebody does us wrong and it plants some negativity in our brain and we nurture it. Like we nurture it like we would a little baby. We just nurture that resentment and build on it, which is dangerous for an addict. Problems with resentment and problems in the sex area is what gets people in relapse more than any other thing. Resentment is at the top of the list. So that's why recovery, I keep taking these glasses off, that's why recovery is, we can't recover for the rest of our life. I hope to be in recovery till the day I die. I mean, that's a hope. But it's what I do today that's going to make that possible. We just have this 24 hours to stay in recovery, and we ask God of the morning for another day of abstinence. We go through the day, we're abstinent, and if we're not, we get on our knees and ask God to help us through that, whatever we did, that relapse or that slip, and then we thank Him at night. So resentment and fear builds pathways in our brains. Pathways. Do y'all believe that? It's like ruts. And these pathways are strong. But guess what? The beautiful truth is they can be rebuilt. I love to see a newcomer that's really into the program. I can think of one right now. I love to be around a newcomer that's got it, that is going to meetings and they're enthusiastic and they want to tell everybody else, you know. I love that. That is a spark in them. And, you know, to stay clean and sober and in recovery, that spark has got to be renewed every day. It's not going to last for one prayer or one meeting. It's got to be renewed every day, every day, every day. So, truth is that we can build new pathways in our brains. That's the good news. You know, daily practice, start your day with gratitude, like I said, you know, and looking at y'all, you probably do this. But make a list of people that you're grateful for. Who are you grateful, not who, but what are you grateful for? And it could be a who you're grateful for. I was laid in bed this morning thinking of my gratitudes, and I made before Misty got over here to set up, I was up to 100 gratitudes. I mean, it's just once you start thinking, I mean, there's so much to be grateful for, so much. And that in itself changes that energy. And energy flows where attention goes. So if you're going to think negative, that's where your energy's going. If you're going to think positive, that's where it can open a floodgate, you know. That positive energy is catchy, just like negativity is. So start your day with gratitude before you pick up the phone and start, you know, going through your phone. Y'all probably don't do that, do you? Do any of you go through your phones? Before you step into chaos of the day, pause, push the pause button. And like I said, write down 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for. And, you know, you might even, you know, like I said, it doesn't have to be great big things. It could be you're grateful for that hot cup of coffee. You're grateful for your wife or your spouse that maybe made the coffee. You're grateful for the breath that you're breathing. Grateful for a friend. Text a friend and tell them how grateful you are for them. So what matters is that you are training your brain and your mind to look for the good. You look for the good in a situation, guess what? You're going to find it. It may be way hidden in there somewhere, but you look for the good, you're going to find the good. You look for the negative, I'll tell you, it's going to be there in blazing color, you know. And so negativity breeds negativity. You know, when a person's negative and they're spouting negative stuff, and then they tell one person, that person tells another person, and it's like a snowball effect. It just gathers up the negativity. So what matters is that you're training your brain to look for the good. Now, bad things happen to good people. In fact, there's a book by that title, Bad Things Happen to Good People. And bad things happen to people in recovery. You know, for some reason or other, we think when we're in recovery that we're kind of going to miss the bad stuff. No, we're not. People are going to die. People are going to do us wrong. There's losses, you know. But the difference is, with every loss, there's a gain. You know, when there's a loss, God's always put something in its place. So as you go through the day, you begin to notice little things you didn't see before. You're going to start seeing the good stuff. You're going to see, and I hate to keep pointing out Jeff, but Jeff is a good person. Jeff is a kind person. He shows kindness, but he doesn't just act kind, he shows his kindness to others. And I'm sure, and I know all of you do. I mean, every one of you. One of the ways you show kindness is by sponsoring people. That's the kindest thing you can do. If you have any kind of recovery, any level of recovery, you have something to offer another person. And I want to thank TJ for taking on one of my clients as a sponsoree. And it's, I think, one of the biggest joys in the program is being able to help someone for free and for fun. That plant up there looks like I've got horns. I'm really not that bad. I don't have horns, but looks like I do. Okay, so moments of kindness, just small blessings, just opportunities. Look for opportunities to be kind instead of obstacles to be obnoxious. We could all be obnoxious. Can y'all? Can you be hateful? I mean, I don't know that you can. I don't think TJ's ever hateful. Let me ask her husband. Get her, ask Wayne, is she ever hateful? So, but we need to look for obstacles, opportunities to be kind to someone else. You know, we can't keep it if we don't give it away. So, this doesn't mean life is perfect, like I said a while ago. It doesn't mean that we're going to ignore the pain and betray and pretend everything is okay. It doesn't mean that. It means going through the pain and knowing that you're going to get on the other side, knowing that there is joy on the other side. And it means that we don't let the hard things become the only thing we see. You know, sometimes people get blinders on and all they see is the doom and gloom. And so what happens is gratitude anchors the despair. Think about it. Gratitude anchors despair. If you are just, just out of sorts, think of someone or something that you're grateful for. And you might even go as far as, if you're thinking about a person, I was told this by my first sponsor. She said, if someone comes to your mind, you need to pick up the phone and call that person. That person is either in trouble and they need to hear from you, or something has blessed their life that they need to share with you. If they come to your mind, pick up the phone and connect with them. Think about that. And so the transformation is, if you practice this daily, your brain's going to change. Those pathways, the brain can change. Don't ever let anybody tell you it can't. This is the strongest muscle, the strongest mechanism that God ever made is the brain. And it can change. If you've got, if you're a negative Nelly, it can change. You can switch the way that you think. I've had a friend in the past that I don't care what was happening or going on. And this is years ago when I used to have parties and all. We'd maybe plan a party together and working on it. And she'd say, well, what if no one comes? And I said, don't say that. I mean, and we'd have a house full, but that's all she could think about. Well, what if no one comes? What are we going to do with all this food? That's negative thinking. And you can't hardly keep people away from a party, especially if you put on the invitation that you're serving food. They're going to show up, So anyway, so you keep focusing on gratitude, and after a while, it's just going to become a way of life. It's going to become natural. What felt like an effort is going to become an instinct. And before you know it, you won't just practice gratitude, you will be carrying the spirit of gratitude with you. So if you notice this morning, and we always talk about what we're going to talk about, that I was going to talk about positive stuff, Spot positive things. I want you to look how many people are here. Think about that. Think about that. Now, and I'm not being critical, but if we put out that we're going to be talking about sex addiction, or we're going to be talking about, you name it, kind of a juicy subject, the screen would be crowded. People don't like really much to talk about positive things. So, having an attitude of gratitude can change our whole perspective on life. And with that, that's what I have. I've said gratitude so many times. If you got it, gratitude's the answer. And if we, we can't be hateful and grateful at the same time. And today, going through your day, you're going to meet people, particularly if you get out on the streets at all for any reason. If you go to the grocery store or whatever, you're going to meet people at every turn that is carrying a burden. People carry burdens. Don't add to their burden by being hateful to them. Have some graciousness, even when they don't, because what they're going to remember is your graciousness. They are going to remember how gracious you were and how kind. They may not act it at the time, but it's going to make a difference in their life. Okay, that's what I have. What do y'all have about an attitude of gratitude?